Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Chill Like a Mother podcast. This month, we are focusing on maternal mental health. And Chelsea has so graciously agreed to be our guest today. Chelsea is the co-owner of Couples to Cradles and Mama Psychologists. If you have not picked up their book, it's too small to see, but it's right there. And I will have all of those things in the show notes for anyone who's interested. Chelsea, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for wanting to share your story with us today. So, what I've been noticing amongst a lot of my clients through Couples to Cradles is that they want to know if what they're experiencing is normal and if it will get better. Chelsea, can you share bits of your story with us that maybe kind of answers those questions?
Well, I will say it usually does get better for sure. I can't tell you how long it takes, but I do think, yeah, I think hope is hard to find sometimes when you're in the midst of it, but it can be there for sure. So my son is, well, how old is he now? He's almost 5. Oh, he's 5.5. So he was born in 2019, but he was supposed to be born in 2020, actually. I went into spontaneous preterm labor at 27 weeks, and I thought it was Braxton Hicks, and I ignored it. And I always joke my husband had to bribe me to go to the hospital for chicken nuggets because that was my craving when I was pregnant with him was chicken nuggets. It was like 12 and midnight or something. He's like, "Yeah, we need to like go get checked." I'm like, "Nah, it'll pass." And he's like, "No, we should probably go. I'll buy you chicken nuggets on the way home." I was like, "Okay, I'll go for the chicken nuggets."
Oh my
So we we
goodness.
we joke about these moments now for sure. Maybe not funny when we were in it, but funny now.
No.
Yeah, and so we got to the hospital in the middle of the night and we were told that the baby was coming right now and we weren't going home. So it was a bit of a whirlwind for sure. I had a wonderful OB. I will never stop singing her praises. She made a very scary situation very calm. I learned after there's about 25 people in the room and I didn't even know that at the time just because she kept it so calm for me and was so great.
Wow.
Yes, she was amazing. And I'm very grateful for her. So well, as you know, we're in Lethbridge, so we don't have access to a level 3 NICU. We had to be shipped up to Calgary. Well, I say we. My son was flown up to Calgary right after he was born by the trauma transport team that comes down from Foothills. So he was shipped up to Calgary right when he was born, and I actually had to stay in Lethbridge for a night to recover. And I remember just like my mom stayed with me and my husband went up with my son. And I just remember being like, but he wasn't supposed to be born yet. Like, this is the wrong
Yeah.
year. Like, my brain just
It's
like
like
couldn't
literally the
process it.
wrong year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I got really stuck on that for a while. And I was like, it's the wrong year. Like, this is not the year he's supposed to be born. And everyone's like, yes, I know. I probably sounded like a broken record because I was just like, it's not right. Like, this isn't right. And that began, I guess, our NICU journey. I mean, his birth was relatively, I'm going to say uncomplicated, as silly as that sounds, but I mean, he cried when he was born, which they said we didn't know if he would or not. And, he was a screaming baby still, and he was considered large at 2 pounds, 11 ounces, for his gestational age. And yeah, it was, a long journey. We were in the hospital for about 15 weeks total.
And
So I
in
think I
Calgary.
13 out of the 15 we were in Calgary. So we were very lucky to get into Ronald McDonald House at the time. So we lived out of there for 3 months and it's right by the hospital, which is lovely. And so we could just shuttle back and forth between Ronald McDonald House and Foothills. And I would say overall our stay was relatively, I don't want to say calm because NICU stays aren't ever really calm, but we had amazing doctors and amazing nurses. And I remember thinking like we're gonna spend every holiday for the next, well, that time of year, right? He was born in October, so there's Halloween, there's Christmas, there's the New Year, I was like, if I'm not home by Valentine's Day, I'm gonna lose my mind, I think. And we were home February 12th.
My
So,
goodness.
or 13th. It was like very close to Valentine's Day. And I was like, if I'm not home, I don't know about this. I said I'd be home by Christmas and I wasn't. So, I mean, Valentine's Day has to be my mark. But his journey was a little bit more complicated because we actually learned he had a heart condition in the NICU. And so feeding was challenging and breathing on his own, like without oxygen, was challenging. And so that definitely prolonged our NICU stay. Probably could have been shorter if that wasn't present. But yeah, I kind of felt like I got thrown into motherhood. Like, who doesn't when they have a new baby? Yeah, it was a bit of a wild time. And I remember not feeling like a mom. So I always, with the clients I work with, I'm always like, it's okay to not feel super
Yeah.
connected or like understand what like quote unquote being a mom means. Like, I felt like it took me a long time to feel really connected because I had to ask permission to change my son's diapers or to touch him or to hold him or to do all those things, right? And I went home every night because there was nowhere to sleep at Foothills. And I say home as in Ronald McDonald House.
Yes.
So, I try to normalize that because it's totally okay not to feel connected. Because I remember just like feeling like I was like going through the motions. It's like I pump, I hold him, put him back. And that was like my job as a mom at that time.
Yeah.
And that connection took time to build. But I think that's also,
Yeah. Yeah. How did all of that affect you?
I don't think I knew in the moment how it affected me, as maybe silly as that sounds. I was just like, I kind of get in a mode where I'm like, I put my head down and like, this is the challenge we're at. So this is what I do. And this is my quote unquote job. So I don't think it really hit me until we came home, actually. So we were lucky to come home before the pandemic started. So we
Okay.
were like
Yeah.
home for
Like
maybe like,
6 weeks, maybe?
yeah,
4?
maybe.
Yeah.
He was on oxygen and a feeding tube when he came home, and I remember we had to go back to the hospital, and then like 2 weeks later, the world shut down. I was like, oh, I'm glad this is like done.
Yeah.
I'm glad we don't have to go back to the hospital right now. So I think it was like months into it, which again isn't uncommon, which a lot of people don't know for perinatal moms is, we can struggle later on because, you get through the fourth trimester, as they like to call it, and you're like, I'm good, I made it. And then all of a sudden 8 months hits, and you're like, wow, I'm actually not good. I'm
I'm
actually
not
not doing
okay.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so that was for me. And I think my like a moment was I was exclusively pumping because breastfeeding felt like too much to learn after having a NICU baby. And I
Yeah.
was like, I'm just gonna do what I know. And I remember getting up one night and I was so angry. I was like vibrating. And my husband woke up. He's like, "Are you okay?" I was like, "I'm just so mad." He's like, "Then stop pumping. Like, it's okay. You can just
Right.
stop. Like, why are you still pumping if it's making you that upset?" And I was like, yeah, I guess I could. Like, I just didn't even think about it. But it wasn't as simple as that, as I just like stopped at that time. But I think that's the moment I remember being like, I think I'm angry. Like, I think I'm angry. And so I went to therapy, actually. I got my own therapist and I did some EMDR, and I think I needed to process the last 15 weeks, and obviously then transitioning into having like a medically fragile baby at home. And so, yeah, it was probably about 8 or 9 months in that I kind of recognized that I wasn't doing very good.
How did things change or shift or be different once you recognized the emotion and then sought out the support that you needed?
Yeah, I think, it really was, I don't want to say like be okay with what happened because there are moments that even to this day, I'm like, I'm so grateful that I had the NICU in some ways. In other ways, I'm like, holy, that was quite a ride. But I think it really just helped me find a place to put some of what I was feeling. Like I needed just some space. And not like I'm very lucky. I have great family support, great friends that I could have talked to, and that just like isn't my style. I was like, not, I'm not gonna bare my soul like that. And so I think I just needed a space where it was like there's no judgment. I could just like say what I felt, whether it was good, bad, ugly, like whatever needed to be. I think I needed to be honest actually with myself was a big part of it. I needed to just admit to myself, like, okay, it's okay that you're not okay. Because I think, especially as a therapist, you're like, well, I teach people how to be okay and to learn these coping skills. Like, I should be okay and be able to do those things in my life, and I can't. And so yeah, just having that space to be like, okay, here it all is. Here's where I'm at, and just recognize that.
Yeah. The difficult part for me in my story is quite similar to that, where, except different. I wasn't a therapist at the time that I became a parent, but I had worked for many years in nonprofit and had worked with very difficult families and difficult children. I was like, I could handle that. Like I could do that. Why can't I do this? Like,
Mhm.
this is one child. Like, and so it was like, I should know what to do was the narrative for me. Was like, you should know how to do this. Like,
No, absolutely. I can relate to that for sure, right? And I think there's a level of, I don't know if it's shame or like what the right word for it is, because I think lots of professionals in the field feel that
yeah.
too. But it's like, if I can't do it, should I be doing my job too? Like, if I can't do it for myself, what does that mean?
Yes. Yes. What does that mean? Is there like a defining moment for you, Chelsea, where you felt that anger shift or that hope like really arrive?
I think it was actually big milestones for me, like for my son, that I was like, okay, we've like made it to this point. Like, I think in the NICU, you're very much get fixated on these, or I did anyways, these milestones. We're like, okay, there's a bigger diaper, there's a longer feed, there's lower oxygen need, like all of these milestones that you're kind of looking at. And then I remember my first Mother's Day, I still have this picture, and I laid out all his diapers, and he was finally in a size 2 diaper at, I don't know what he was, 7 or 8 months old. And I put a little credit card next to it because that like kind of showed how small like the micro preemie diapers was. And I was so excited that he was in a size 2 diaper. I was like, finally, he's like in a normal sized baby diaper. Like that was a big moment for me. And I was like, it's our first Mother's Day. We're not in the hospital. Like it's a good day. Ironically, and I did count this out, so maybe that tells you where my state of mind was. That was exactly the gestation he was born at, so it was Mother's Day. So we were like at the same, he was out as long as he was in. And so it was just felt like a big day for me and in a good way. Like it wasn't a sad day, which some of those other milestones can be. And I know they warned us about like the first birthday, like he might have a lot of feelings. And always his birthday, even to this day, is so filled with hope for me. Like I'm always so excited and I'm always like so over the top for birthdays anyway, but I'm like always like, wow, we made it to like another birthday. This is so awesome. So yeah, I'd say the milestones are probably the big ones for me.
Yeah. Knowing what you know now, what would you say that you experienced was not normal in terms of mental health? Like I make this distinction with my clients all the time. It's like what you're experiencing is typical of motherhood experience, but it's not normal, as in not everybody has a NICU stay. Not everybody has like a diagnosable level of anxiety. Not everybody experiences intrusive thoughts. So like it's typical,
Hmm.
but it's not
Hmm.
normal. And so knowing what you know now, looking back, what would you say were like some of those distinguishing things that like maybe you didn't know then, but you know now?
For me, it was that I cried all the time. And I'm not a crier, like normally, like it's just not how I express myself. And so me crying was like very odd. And
Right.
it'd be like all the time, randomly. And I don't mean even just like at the well, I was crying at the hospital. I don't mean just like in like that baby blues period, right? Where you're kind of expected to be a little bit more teary. It was like months later, and my mom was like, I've never seen you cry that much in my life. And she wasn't saying it like in the judgmental way. She was just like, that was weird for you. And I was like, yeah, that was weird for me. I don't think I've cried that much since ever again, in like a year as much as I cried at that time. So for me, I think it's paying attention to what is your normal, like kind of reaction to things, to stress. And like, are you kind of responding in that way? Because I was not, like, I wasn't maybe being a little bit more, I'm going to say reserved. Like I just often will like keep my feelings to myself. So I don't think that was like out of the norm for me necessarily, but like the like, crying at the drop of the hat was like, okay, are you okay? And to anybody else, they'd be like, of course you cried. You're in the NICU. And I was like, yeah, but I'm not a crier. So
But
that's
that's
not
not my
normal for me.
normal.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
can be subtle too, which I think is important for people to know, right? Like anybody would be like, well, that seems like a normal thing to do. And it's like, yeah, but if it's not your normal, then maybe it's not, right? Like if you're not used to responding again in those ways, then it's always good to pay attention to like, what is something you're doing that's not typical for how you would normally respond to any stressful situation?
Yes. Yes. What did you find about the transition between one and then to two? Were there some things that like came up when you were pregnant with your second or like approaching that 27-week mark that
Mm-hmm.
like, did you notice any of those parts?
I would say my husband was more obsessed with the weeks of gestation than I was. He's like, oh, we made it another week. I was like, yeah. I did have a very different pregnancy for sure. I was on a medication with my second to hopefully like help make a difference. And a lot more ultrasounds and a lot more monitoring, which is great. Like nothing wrong with that. So I made it to, which I feel is a very long time, to 38 weeks with her.
Yes.
And so I was like, after what did they tell us? We could stay in Lethbridge after 32 weeks. So once I hit 32 weeks, I was like, I'm good. I could do whatever, anything that comes at me, I'm totally fine.
Yeah, yeah.
So I remember, and then I made it to her birthday's in March. I made it to March 1st, and I was like, oh, well, I guess I'm having a baby in the right month this time. Like it was very different. But I actually did what I like to call like preconception and like well, I was pregnant, I guess, at the time too, but I did a lot of therapy actually in between that time and
Yes.
like making that decision to have another baby because I'll caveat that by my son was going to be having a major surgery in Edmonton at some point. We didn't know when. And I was like, okay, what happens if I'm like have another baby in this time frame
Mhm.
or, I have to deliver or like what does that look like? So there are some pieces that I needed to process to like make that decision for sure. But and maybe it's because I did do the therapy and that's what I needed, but I was never scared to have another baby because I always felt like what we went through NICU, I was like, I feel like I can handle a lot now. Like, I feel like I know a lot. I feel like I could, my distress tolerance was probably a little bit larger at that time. And so that piece felt okay for me. Where it's funny, my husband was like very stressed about like the gestation and like paying attention to the weeks. And I was like, hey, we make it at 32, we're like smooth sailing. So I think that's one thing I did do, which I found very helpful. In terms of going from 1 to 2 in general, I found it harder in some ways. My kids are just over 2 years apart, so that could be part of it too. But it was like, how do we juggle like all the needs that are coming up and all of my baby looking back was still a baby to me. Like it was just, navigating those dynamics and unfortunately, I had a complicated delivery with my daughter for myself, and my recovery took about, I would say, a year. That might be a little bit dramatic, but it felt like a very long time because I had an emergency C-section. And so, that piece of it, the physical recovery felt very hard. But I think because I did the therapy before, the birth itself didn't feel traumatic. I was just like, I can do it. I can handle it. And so, where objectively speaking, people are like, oh, wow. Okay. Are you okay? And I'm like, actually, I'm great. Like, I'm okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you speak more about how it was helpful to be in therapy in between and especially during that second pregnancy? I am all about like that mental health can be preventable to some degree. Can you just like speak more about that part?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I always felt like NICU was like obviously now an option. I was like, well, I kind of knew it was an option before, but I really knew it was an option after I had my first. And so I really wanted to go into it where I felt more well equipped to cope with whatever happened. So that was kind of my intention was I want to feel like I can be either more present or if I had another NICU stay, I'd obviously have another baby. So I'd be juggling more. And so I went in with the intention or the goal at that time to be like, okay, I just want to know that I'm okay or as okay as I can be if life throws me another curveball. Like I just want to feel prepared. And so some of it included EMDR, so just for that like reprocessing and future templating, so kind of preparing for future scenarios. And so I think it really helps me feel more regulated. And so I'm maybe disillusioned a little bit for some people would probably say, because they're like, are you sure you're okay? I'm like, I promise I'm fine. And so, yeah, I think I encourage lots of my clients who have had traumatic births, like if they can, to do some of that preconception counseling or planning, whatever that looks like. And, I was able to ask my doctor like questions that I needed answered just to feel like more comfortable with moving forward.
Yeah. That's amazing. I really found the counseling in between my first and my second to be so beneficial. I actually wish somebody probably, and maybe they did, I don't know. I tend not to listen sometimes. Is like, I wish somebody would have told me that with my first. Like just given only the transition to motherhood, not anything
Mm-hmm.
about mental health or coping or relationship or finances or any of those things. Just simply the transition to motherhood. I feel like we just like breeze over that in society. right? And
Mhm.
it's like, well, you'll be fine. It'll be fine. Like the message is mostly like you'll be fine, which most people will be fine. But I found that counseling between the first and the second to be so beneficial. And I agree with you 100% of the like understanding your stress tolerance and like walking through those future scenarios and all these things. Like I even went to the extent, my dog is right here. It's like I would play crying noises for my dog to acclimatize him when I was pregnant with my first 10 years ago. Did I play crying noises for myself to acclimatize for me? No,
Mhm.
no. You know, like, it's like,
Yeah.
no, nobody told me that the crying can last like that. Typically, little babies in that fourth trimester will cry for up to 2 hours a day. Like nobody really laid it out for me like that of like, are you really prepared for this?
Absolutely.
Go play crying noises for 2 hours and see how long you can stand it before you break. Right? Like, but no, like, no, for me, nobody said it like that.
Mhm.
It was all these outward things like make sure your partner's ready. Make sure if you have a dog, they're ready, or that your family members are ready. Make sure you communicate with them. Make sure they are informed. And I found a huge missing piece was like a lot of the information at that time wasn't a lot of like how you should prepare yourself.
Absolutely. No, even like the books, right? Like that you get from the doctor or what to expect when you're expecting or whatever, like whatever. There's so many out there now. It's always like, here's the baby's milestones and here's your like gestational milestones. And it really doesn't talk about like, this is like maybe some mental experiences that you can have or some feelings that could come up or, I remember and I think we also aren't talking that you can get through the hard things. Like, it can be hard and it's okay to say it's hard, but it doesn't mean you're not going to get through that either. Because I remember being in labor and I literally said to my OB, I was like, I don't know how to push. I didn't get to that part in my book yet.
Right.
And she's like, you'll be okay. We'll figure it out. And you're like, oh yeah, I know. But I was like, but I didn't read that part. Like I didn't get to that chapter because it told you to like go through the books in the weeks or whatever.
Yes.
And so, I always think about that, especially with some of the work. I'm like, just because you don't know doesn't mean we can't figure it out.
Yes. And just because you didn't read it beforehand
Yeah.
doesn't mean you can't figure it out.
Yeah.
Right?
You don't have
Yeah.
to research everything. No.
Yes. 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 Chelsea, if someone is listening and they are thinking, I don't know if what I'm experiencing is normal and I maybe am bordering on a pretty dark place, what would you say to them?
I'd first say if you're asking that, then something's probably not feeling right with you. Doesn't mean anything is necessarily like hugely detrimentally wrong, but if you're having those questions, it's probably good to explore them more because they're there for a reason. And of course, I'm sure you feel the same. I'm totally biased. I think therapy is a wonderful option,
Yes.
but it's not realistic for everybody. So what does that mean for you? Could you look up some resources? Could you talk to a friend? Could you talk to a doctor or if you have a midwife, like who in your circle can you reach out to and be like, I'm not feeling quite like myself. And if you can't, is there an online community that feels safe to do so? Or what does that look like?
Amazing. Amazing. Chelsea, if anybody has any inklings that they would like to start therapy, can you just name where people can find you?
Absolutely. Well, you can find us at Mama Psychologist online, and we give lots of free resources. And then, of course, Couples to Cradles Counseling, where we have an amazing team like Kayla, who are our therapists and trained. We have so many people trained in so many wonderful areas, but especially maternal mental health, which is a lot of people's focus, which I think is amazing. Our website is www.couple. We also have lots of blog posts too. So if you're like, I don't know what this symptom is, you can kind of read about it and see if it kind of clicks for you or not too.
Thank you so much, Chelsea, for being here. And I will include all of those links in the show notes. If anybody out there is struggling with their mental health, please reach out to anybody, anyone in your community or online or a friend, a Facebook group. Just make sure that those spaces feel safe and that you're getting the resources that you need. But please continue to reach out. Keep talking about it. Keep sharing it with people because if, like Chelsea said, if you have some inkling, you're wondering if it's normal, it's probably a good idea to explore that. So thank you everybody for being here. Happy Maternal Mental Health Month and a wonderful, wonderful wave of hello and gratitude to all the people who do this wonderful work, who support women and mothers and fathers and the children who need it.